We will start straight away with our first speaker, Mrs. Mariana Mesci. She is a professional with almost 20 years experience in addressing issues of trafficking and exploitation in Albania. She has an educational background in social work, and she has worked directly with survivors of trafficking for their protection and assistance through enabling, sheltering, exercising rights for legal aid, medical help, psychological support, return and reintegration. She is the executive director of the organization Different and Equal for 16 years, which is an organization that provides sustainable and comprehensive services for the reintegration of survivors of trafficking, abuse, or exploitation through shelter and community services, and is a member of the National Referral Mechanism. She has made contributions to several initiatives in Albania in the field of anti-trafficking, such as awareness activities, training, policy making, research, and standards of care for victims of trafficking in Albania. She has been a trainer in many training events organized for different professionals, such as police, social services, shelter staff, child protection units, health staff, employment offices, media, and so on. She has contributed and made presentations during several national and international activities. Mariana, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Miriam. I would like to start the presentation making just a short description of the organization Different and Equal work on anti-trafficking. So the organization Different and Equal was established on May 2004, and since then we have contributed in different aspects of anti-trafficking. Can you go to the second slide, please? Thank you. We support a lot on the protection of the victims of trafficking, and we do this through our work on identification, on our work on providing the services for their reintegration. We support also through the support that we give to their dependents and their family members. And we provide these services in the long term. Besides the direct assistance for the victims of trafficking, we do a lot of work in improving the system of protection of the victims of trafficking in Albania, not just by participating in national referral mechanism, but also in improving the legal framework, on improving the protection framework, like standard operating procedures, trainings, etc., with different actors. We do a lot of work lately, even for the children of the victims of trafficking, by providing after-school and PM care for them, but also other services that they might need. We do our work by a team, a multidisciplinary team composed of social workers, psychologists, doctor, lawyer, teacher, whom together works to address different needs that the victims might have. And we work 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we provide residential service through the shelter that is based in Tirana, but we support the victims of trafficking from all over Albania, who might be domestic victims or might be foreign victims that have been trafficked in Albania. Our services and our reintegration program is based, as I said, on a multidisciplinary approach, but also on a cross-sectorial approach. So we cooperate a lot with different institutions and actors in the field, who might be from government, from NGOs, from business especially, for their integration. Regarding the recovery and reintegration assistance for the victims of trafficking, we has established a program that is conducted through 3 phases of assistance. Can you go to the other slide, please? So the first stage of the reintegration is we called crisis intervention. The other one, the second stage is transit stage or semi-independent living. And the third stage we called the social inclusion stage. So in the first stage, we work since at the beginning when a case is referred in our program, we work to address the immediate needs and to do the right needs assessment. We believe that in order to give appropriate assistance for the reintegration of victims of trafficking is very important to do the right needs assessment for this case. So besides addressing the immediate needs at the beginning, then we work to do a comprehensive needs assessment for each of the cases that we assist. So we do the need, we assess the need for psychological interventions, the needs for accommodation, the needs for health services, the needs for legal support. And later on, when a case is stabilized and it's improved the psychological well-being, they're addressed the emergent health or security issues, then we work for improving life skills and for social and economic reintegration of the case. Then it starts the second stage we call of the reintegration, when we see and do a needs assessment of the skills that are needed for the case to be employed, or if the case needs and have the desire to go back to school, we support for going back to school. For those cases that would like and have to attend a vocational training based on the skills, on the desire, and on the labor market, we support to attend this vocational training. When the cases have finished vocational training, then we support for the employment. For this, we cooperate a lot with business companies, with employment offices, and so they help us in identifying the job placements for our cases, in orienting us in the job market. We support a lot cases to prepare for the world of labor, because like, for example, how to write a CV, how to search for a job, for those that would like to upgrade the skills, how to upgrade these skills. Also, in preparation for work, we do some short internships, and we do also coach for employment for these cases. When the cases are employed, then we support them in following up if there are issues in the labor place, how are the relationships with employers, with colleagues. This is based really in a trauma-informed approach, because we know that traumas have long-term impact in their lives, so they need coaching and support through the reintegration process. This is really very important. And besides that, we support even through the mentors, and my colleague Adela will talk later about this more. And we support a lot for then after they leave the shelter for the housing, especially for long-term housing. We support for establishing relationships in the community where they have choose to be reintegrated. We give the map of services in order to access directly the services after they leave our program. And then now it starts the third stage of reintegration, the social inclusion. And this is a stage that our assistance is reduced because they are becoming more independent. So it's increased their contribution towards independent life. Besides working a lot with the survivors of trafficking for their empowerment, we have worked a lot to improve the context in which the reintegration happens. So to make awareness raising for the rights of the victims in order to avoid stigmatization, because we know that some challenges that victims of trafficking face through reintegration are stigma and victim blaming. So we have done a lot of work to improve this in communities. We work a lot with institutions in order to support them through capacity building and trainings. So I might say that in order to have a successful reintegration, besides the hard work that we have to do and should do, everybody, with the victims of trafficking, we should do a lot of work in improving the context in which the trafficking happens.
Thank you, Mariana, and it was very interesting, and I think we start to understand why reintegration process takes a long time, because all the package of services that are needed.
I'm at the last slide. It is a video, but maybe Mariana has something to say about this. Time to talk, break the silence, ask for help.
Yeah, this is one of the videos that the group of survivors that we support designed in the last campaign that they did it to address the sexual violence and trafficking to youth. So besides designing other tools, they designed this video in order to encourage the victims of sexual violence or trafficking to talk. So this is they even participated together with the company in the process of filming and of making this video, and this has been really so empowering for them, and they are so proud that they have contributed through these campaigns and that even for this video. So maybe Felix can help us to show it.
Ai vjen sy kudo që shkon. Është energjik, shumë simpatik, edhe në shkollë gjithë duan ta kenë shok. Puthjen e parë më dha ai te makina babit ti. Nga ajo ditë rrim gjithë kohës bashkë. Ai më bën për qeshur edhe me të ndjem ndryshe. Thot që më mendon gjithë kohës dhe do që si dërgoj foto sa herë ndërmali. Me të bëj gjëra që nuk I kam bërë kurrë më parë. Në klasë asnjëri nuk e di për ne. Vetëm shoqja ime e ngushtë. Edhe ai thot që është më mirë kështu. Një ditë, sa po mbaron mësimi, ai më thot, do dalim sot në darkë. Merre edhe shoqen me vete. Ai nuk do të fshihet më. Bota jonë po s'madhohet. Në fakt, kjo është hera parë që ne nuk jemi vetëm. Sa herë ai është me shokët e tij në lokal. Ata tallën gjithkohë dhe them të drejtën, po mbezdisin. Më ngacmojnë ndërsa ai nuk thot asgjë. Pse sillen kështu? Kërkoj shikimin e tij, po nuk e gjej. Ata diçka shohin në telefon dhe ai qesh bashkë me to. Çfarë kanë aty? Pse shohin mua, pse qeshin? Nuk është e mundur. Ka shpërndar fotot e mia. Jo. Nuk ka mundësi. Unë I besova atij. Dua t'i dëgjoj më. Po tani, çfarë të bëj? Dua të zhdukem me këtu. Dua të jo njeri, nuk duhet të dalë. Jo të shkoj të kurrë, më në shko, askush nuk do besoj më. E kë flas. Nuk jetoj më. Jo, nuk më detyrojnë dot të bëj atë që s'dua. Unë nuk jam kështu. Nuk jam si që më mendojnë ata. Po doktoresha pas në kohë nuk do i besoja më ati.
Thank you. So we're happy that we had Adlaida and to present this and this impressive, very impressive film introduced by Mariana. So I think we are very full of information and also very touched because this is emotional. This is really very heavy to take in. Now we have some questions, and I think I will give some to give you the possibility maybe to share what you want to speak about. So there was a discussion about dissociative identity disorder, what is related to post-traumatic disorder, but even deeper and related to childhood trauma. And maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit more if possible, but I think it's going very deep. Then there is a question about what are the major challenges for each of the speaker after all these years working with enslaved people, survivors of human trafficking. And have you noticed specific trauma symptoms among victims of trafficking, other than trauma symptoms in general? That means other specific symptoms for trauma in general. It's asked by Dr. Zaina Chemali, a psychologist at the Comité contre l'esclavage moderne in Paris. So the three ideas is first the dissociative identity disorder, then the major challenges of each of you, and specific trauma symptoms among victims of trafficking. So just if you feel to answer to one or two of them, you can take the floor. I don't know if somebody of you wants to start.
Thank you, Sister Imelda, for the question. It's a very challenging work indeed. Even I have almost 20 years and still is very challenging. So if challenges at the beginning were more on the knowledge, how to do it and when, etc., it's always a risky work. So security, it's a challenge for every professional that works in this work. It's another challenge is that you might be exposed to secondary traumatization. And I would like to mention here that we as organization provide supervision and support for the staff. And I think every service provider should do this, because otherwise it will be very difficult to go on, and the staff might risk to be exposed by secondary traumatization. Other difficulties are that sometimes you feel alone because there are many gaps in the system. I mentioned that is a multidisciplinary approach, and cross-sectorial collaboration is very important, but you don't find the response you need or the help you need by the system. So all these gaps in the system sometimes make you feeling that like you are fighting the fight alone, and how to go on. So even to find the courage to go on when you feel alone, sometimes it's not easy. Other issues are that you are exposed even to health issues also, because you work with a population that is has many health problems, and even those those diseases that might be transmitted easy. So even to be careful in this aspect is very important, and to train and to increase the skills of the staff in this aspect is important, but also to provide the right support. Also, funding to continue this kind of work is always very challenging, and I talk from the perspective of a director of an NGO that it has been very hard and very difficult always to continue providing 24-hour services 7 days a week, but especially on the quality that you would like to do this work. I'm stopping here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. We got another new question, what I think is very interesting. Does hope play a role in recovery? If so, how, especially for some who can still connect with God and or their religious traditions, where hope is something that goes beyond this life, or perhaps a sense of being abandoned by God or a higher power undermines such a sense of hope? Can you say something? One of Maria? Yeah.
I think, yes, hope is very important. Even sometimes it's not easy to find hope, but as we are saying, with all the support of these professionals, and Irena mentioned the spirituality support also. And so, yes, we have seen that for those that find the trust in God and that can exercise also the religious. I'm talking not as a psychologist, but as a person that worked long with victims. Find it more easily to have the resilience and to go on. But Irena and Adela are specialists and psychologists, so they can.
So I know that our time is going to end, but there's a very interesting question also. Are there any international communities of practice for mental health professionals in anti-trafficking work? Also, any international networks for shelters and psychosocial programs to share good practice, challenge solidarity? Do you know about it?
I can talk for shelter networks, as we are members of global networks of women's shelters, and we share with them also. We haven't found international community of practice for mental health professionals. So this is a very good question that is raised, and is very good to search more in order to help more the professionals besides what we support here. So we mostly has exchanged and shared or trained by international professionals, but to have a community of practice internationally, at least from our organization, we didn't experience with mental health professionals. We do community of practice in general for reintegration work and shelter work, but it's a good question, this indeed.